All right, welcome everybody to the deep dive. Today we're going deep on DJ marketing. And this all stemmed from a recent roundtable discussion among DJs that you sent me. It was a great conversation.
He was.
And our goal today is to pull out all the best advice, the real world tips and experience that they shared so you can see what works, why it works.
Right. You mentioned the very first question that was posed in this audio, which is marketing at an event, like, a wedding, a party, corporate gig, whatever, is it a good thing or a bad thing?
Yeah, and that's what really caught my attention. I was like, oh, this is really fascinating. And it is where we're going to start our deep dive. But then we're going to branch out to the entire landscape of DJ marketing that they discussed, because I think there's something here for everybody, whether you're a seasoned pro or you're just getting started and trying to figure out how to market yourself, how to promote your services. One thing that stood out to me immediately was just how many different opinions and experiences were shared. And some DJs were very against any kind of like obvious self-promotion during a paid gig, while others had found ways to make it work for them.
Right.
So our mission today is to pull out all the actionable advice, all the different perspectives, and, understand how DJs can effectively promote themselves without being too pushy, without, taking away from the client's event.
Right.
So let's unpack this, starting with the idea of marketing while you're actually DJing a paid event. There seemed to be like a pretty clear divide on this in the roundtable discussion.
Yeah. Yeah, there was this initial feeling, I guess. You kind of echoed it in the audio too, is that once you're at a gig, the priority has to be the client and their guests and the experience.
Yeah.
And not so much about, promoting yourself in that moment.
Yeah. Right.
You're being paid to do a job, do the job well.
Yeah.
And then, hopefully the marketing will come later.
And the examples that came up, really painted a pretty clear picture of what we're talking about here. Huge banners, your name plastered all over the DJ booth, constant self-promotion on your video screens.
Yeah.
I mean, these things can really take away from the atmosphere.
Absolutely.
The client has tried to create.
Yeah.
And the idea of, leaving business cards on every table.
Ugh, that's a bad one.
Yeah, I mean, apparently facility managers often find piles of these.
Right.
Just left behind. And it doesn't really create a very good impression.
No. I mean, what's the point if everyone's throwing them away? Are you really,
Yeah, it's like littering.
Right. Right.
But what was interesting is how the conversation quickly moved beyond this kind of like initial no. There were some nuances and there were some very specific exceptions.
Right. It wasn't just a yes or no kind of thing.
Right.
It was okay, well, here's where maybe it's okay and here's where it's definitely not okay.
Right. Everyone seemed to agree that handing out a business card or, showing someone a QR code if they ask you is perfectly acceptable.
Right. If they're interested, then, hey, here's my information.
Yeah, because then you're just providing information to someone who's already expressed an interest.
Absolutely.
And then the conversation went even deeper and started discussing, some subtle forms of branding.
Right.
So Jeff mentioned his small optional logo in the corner of his video display. But the thing that really stood out to me was his intention behind it.
Yeah.
It wasn't meant to compete with or overshadow the client's visuals. It was just this very understated presence.
Yeah.
And he mentioned it being linked to his virtual DJ control. So when he hits the button, the logo comes on, but it's not, a huge banner or anything like that.
Yeah, he's not trying to be a billboard.
Right.
It's just there's a little bit of branding there.
Yeah.
A little bit of identification.
Right. And even something as simple as wearing name tags with a small logo, which a lot of DJs do, myself included,
Right.
that doesn't even really register as marketing
Yeah.
to the guests.
I never even thought about that.
I mean, because they don't connect that name tag to the actual DJ service that they're experiencing.
Yeah. That's more for identification.
Yeah.
Between vendors and stuff, right?
Right. Yeah. But the roundtable also highlighted some clear don'ts, which I think are super valuable.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, everyone was pretty much against having large, obvious banners or displaying your full company name in huge letters at a paid event.
Especially at a wedding.
Especially at a wedding.
Yeah.
Yeah. And unsolicited business cards placed on tables.
Bad idea.
That was pretty much a no-go across the board.
Yeah. Yeah, unless someone specifically asks, why are you just putting your stuff, all over?
Yeah, don't litter.
It's like littering, yeah.
The image of a laptop covered in various brand stickers, that also came up.
Yeah.
And I jokingly referred to it as the NASCAR effect. It's like, it's a little much, it can be a little overwhelming, and maybe doesn't project the kind of professional image that most DJs are going for. And this was contrasted with DJ Jazzy Jeff has his name lit up on his laptop.
Right.
But I mean, he's DJ Jazzy Jeff, so he's operating at a different level.
Of course.
And then there was this ethically tricky issue that came up about bringing prospective clients to existing paid events.
Oh, yeah.
Like essentially wedding crashing for marketing purposes.
Yeah.
My take, and I think a lot of the DJs in the roundtable agreed, it's ethically questionable.
Yeah, you're kind of being disingenuous to the client that's paying you right now.
Yeah.
You should be focused on them.
Yeah.
Not trying to sell other people, on
Yeah.
your services.
Mm-hmm. Right. It could even compromise the client's experience if you're too busy trying to, drum up new business.
Absolutely.
So we've established that overt marketing at events is generally discouraged. So what are the alternative marketing strategies that these DJs discussed?
Right.
I think this is where things get really interesting and where you can find some really actionable ideas.
Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff here.
We heard about, a whole spectrum of strategies, starting with the most fundamental, most organic word of mouth.
Right, which is still so important.
Hunter emphasized how effective this has been for him. He relies heavily on his church connections, his personal network.
Yeah.
And the best part about it has zero direct cost.
Right.
You can't beat that return on investment.
You can't.
Mm-hmm.
But it does take work.
Right.
To build those relationships.
Yeah.
But yeah, word of mouth is super powerful.
It is because it comes with built-in trust.
Right.
If someone you know and respect recommends something to you, you're more likely to check it out.
Absolutely.
Then the conversation moved to, a more traditional tool, business cards.
Right.
Which are still pretty common.
Still relevant, yeah.
But there were some really, clever variations being used.
It's a modern twist.
Sean mentioned that he actually has 2 different types of business cards.
Oh, interesting.
One for potential clients, which has a QR code.
Right.
Takes them directly to his website, makes it easy to find him.
Yeah.
And then another type specifically for networking with other vendors, photographers, videographers, that kind of thing.
Okay.
And his includes a link tree.
Yeah.
Which, for those who don't know, it's basically a single web link that acts as a gateway to multiple other links.
Right.
And that makes it super easy for vendors to tag him in their posts, connect on different platforms, all that.
That's really smart.
So he's really tailoring his approach to the different needs of his audiences.
Yeah, he's thinking ahead.
Yeah. And then, of course, the digital realm. I mean, that's a huge part of DJ marketing today.
It has to be, right? I mean, everyone's online.
It has to be.
Yeah.
Social media was mentioned by Hunter, Dwayne, Sean, and the speaker from Australia.
Right.
Short shared a really interesting data point. He found that Instagram ads actually performed better than Facebook ads for him in terms of engagement. But overall, Google ads were the most effective at generating actual leads.
Okay.
So, I mean, that's something to really think about if you're, investing in online advertising.
Yeah, where you're putting your money.
Right.
And making sure it's actually working for you.
Yeah. Websites were also mentioned as essential by Dwayne and the speaker from Australia.
Makes sense. It's like your digital storefront, right?
Absolutely. It's like a central hub.
Yeah.
People can go find information, book you.
Yeah.
Dwayne highlighted having an event questionnaire on his website.
Oh, that's smart.
Which I think is really clever because he's able to collect all the important details from potential clients.
Right up front.
Yeah.
Right up front.
Yeah, instead of going back and forth on email or phone calls.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Streamline the process.
Yeah.
And then online directories like Wedding Wire.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's called Wedwire, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
That or Woodwire.
Right.
Something like that.
Came into the conversation because Dwayne mentioned his experience with the free account on Get Salad.
Yeah.
And he said that, initially Google Ads took a while to really generate leads for him.
Okay.
But he really focused on building positive Google reviews.
Ah, okay.
And that made a big difference over the long term.
I see, yeah.
So it's like, it's like the digital version of word of mouth.
Right.
Those reviews really matter.
Especially online.
Especially on
Because that's how people are judging you.
Right.
If you're looking for a DJ.
Right.
They're going to look at reviews. Exactly. And then Sean went deeper into his success with Google Ads.
Yeah.
He said 80% of his leads were coming from Google Ads,
Wow, that's a big number.
which is huge.
Yeah.
And the way he described his strategy, I mean, it was really impressive, targeting demographics,
Yeah.
age, gender.
Oh, interesting.
He specifically focused on reaching females
Yeah.
because they often take the lead in event planning,
Sort.
right? Engagement status, even their online shopping patterns.
Oh, wow.
So if they're looking at wedding dresses, if they're looking at venues,
Yeah, he's really targeting the right people
he's zeroing in
at the right time.
at the right time.
Yeah.
I mean, it's brilliant.
That's amazing.
Now, Dwayne's experience was a little bit different. It was more of a slow burn, but eventually Google Ads really started working for him.
Yeah.
But again, he emphasized the importance of those Google reviews.
Right, right.
And we heard about, Sean's success with Google Ads and Facebook and Instagram ads. Nathan said he was going to start experimenting with Facebook ads soon,
Okay.
which just goes to show that, you really have to test and analyze different platforms and figure out what works best for you.
Right. Because it might be different
Yeah.
for different people. Yeah.
We also heard a really cool example of, subtle but effective marketing from Chris, who runs a photo booth business.
Oh.
The way he integrated branding into the automated text messages that the photo booth sends,
Okay.
just by including North Georgia photo booth.
Yeah.
And he has a small, non-intrusive sign with a QR code encouraging reviews.
Okay.
So he's finding ways to kind of like subtly keep his name out there.
Right. Without being too pushy.
Without being too pushy,
Yeah.
And then we talked about, in-person networking opportunities beyond just, the events that you're DJing.
Right. Right.
So Hunter's active outreach within his church community, that's one example.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you already have that connection.
Right.
You're already part of that community.
And then there's Nathan's very proactive.
Yeah.
Some might even say bold approach.
Yeah.
Of literally looking for engaged couples in public. He'll see the ring.
Yeah. How does he know?
And he'll just strike up a conversation.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and offer his services.
That's
I mean, he admitted it can be a little awkward,
I bet.
but sometimes you got to put yourself out there.
Yeah.
And Kevin in the chat suggested targeting jewelry stores,
Oh, smart.
which again, it's like building those referral relationships with complementary businesses.
Yeah.
But, as the discussion pointed out, sometimes these preferred vendor lists come at a cost.
Oh, right.
Maybe there's a commission or a fee involved.
Right.
So that's something to keep in mind.
Yeah, just be aware of the different arrangements that exist.
Yeah, exactly. Which leads us back to my initial point about the importance of timing and location when it comes to your marketing efforts.
Yeah.
The Roundtable really hammered this point home.
Yeah.
The context really matters.
It does.
So, wedding and DJ trade shows.
Right.
I mean, that's where banners and displays are not only acceptable,
Yeah.
they're expected.
That's where you go to see that stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But opinions were a little more divided when it came to things like bar gigs,
Okay.
karaoke nights.
Yeah.
Some DJs still felt uncomfortable with banners, even in those settings,
Yeah, I can see that.
considering it's still a paid gig,
Yeah.
while others felt it was more okay in a less formal atmosphere.
Yeah.
But pretty much everyone agreed that having business cards available is fine
Yeah.
in those kinds of settings.
Makes sense.
And when it comes to community festivals, getting approval from the organizers is crucial
Oh, yeah, yeah.
before putting up any signage.
You don't want to step on any toes.
No, not at all. So it really boils down to, respecting the event,
Right.
understanding what's appropriate in different environments,
Absolutely.
Right.
building relationships with other vendors in the industry.
Yeah.
This was another big one
Yeah.
that came up.
Important.
Jeff shared a really cool story about how venue managers actually requested his business cards because they were so impressed with his setup and his video display during an event,
Oh, wow. That's great.
which I think is awesome.
That's a testament to his work.
Yeah, I mean, providing excellent service
Yeah.
can organically lead to marketing opportunities.
Absolutely.
And a lot of the DJs talked about being on preferred vendor lists at venues
Yeah.
and becoming a preferred vendor. It's all about, doing a great job, building relationships with the staff,
Yeah.
being proactive, asking about the venue's process.
Yeah.
And then our guest from Australia, Paul, he brought up a really interesting point about how some venues actually require DJs to pay a fee to be able to play there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, which blew my mind a little bit, But apparently this also exists in some U.S. venues.
Really?
Yeah, so it's not unheard of.
Wow, that's something to be aware of.
Yeah, it's all about understanding the different business models out there.
Absolutely. Do your research.
Extra what you're getting into.
The importance of having business insurance, that also came up
Oh, yeah.
as a requirement for a lot of venues.
That's essential.
Absolutely.
Yeah, protect yourself.
Yeah. And Mike, in the chat, he mentioned how changes in venue ownership can impact existing vendor lists.
Oh,
Which is something I hadn't really thought about before. You know, new management might come in.
Right.
They might have their own people.
Yeah.
So it's important to stay on top of those relationships.
Yeah. Stay in touch.
Reach out. Reintroduce yourself.
Yep. And while we didn't specifically talk about measuring marketing effectiveness, it was kind of this underlying theme
It was woven in, yeah.
throughout the whole conversation.
Right.
Dwayne talked about how he had trouble pinpointing exactly where his clients were coming from.
Yeah.
Because he was using so many different methods at once.
Right.
Whereas Shane was very clear, 80% Google ads.
Yeah.
You know? And ultimately, it boils down to return on investment.
Right.
Making sure your marketing efforts are actually bringing in business.
Yeah, it's got to be worth it.
Right. So to kind of bring this all together, there's no one-size-fits-all solution to DJ marketing.
Yeah, it really depends.
It's highly dependent on you.
On your situation.
Your situation.
Yeah.
The types of events you handle.
Yeah.
Your overall goals.
Your goals, absolutely.
And, you have to find a balance between those, subtle organic methods.
Right.
Like word of mouth, networking.
Yeah.
And more proactive strategies.
Right.
Like online advertising, preferred vendor relationships.
Yeah.
And thinking back to that very first question about marketing at events.
Yeah.
While overtly promoting yourself during a paid gig is generally frowned upon.
Yeah, generally not a good idea.
Not a good idea.
Yeah.
There are so many other avenues that DJs can explore.
Yeah, there are so many options.
To build a successful business.
Absolutely.
So hopefully today's deep dive has given you a lot to think about.
Yeah, a lot of practical takeaways.
Really consider which of these strategies might work best for you.
Yeah.
Your specific situation, the kinds of events that you typically do.
Absolutely.
Your goals.
And the final thought that I'll leave you with, beyond just, the clicks and the impressions and the immediate results from paid advertising.
Yeah.
Think about the long-term value of building real, genuine, strong relationships with both clients and other vendors.
Yeah.
I mean, in the long run,
Yeah.
a solid reputation for excellent service,
Yeah.
professionalism.
Yeah.
That could be the most powerful and sustainable marketing tool of all.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
I think you're absolutely right. Well, thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive.
My pleasure.
I hope you found it insightful, and I hope you got a lot of value out of it.
Yeah, it was a great conversation.
Absolutely.
I learned a lot.
And we'll see you on the next deep dive.